the morning of the inauguration, went to this very church. Every president since then has done it, except Richard Nixon on his second term. He actually went to a church service the day after his inauguration, but it is a tradition. Sometimes presidents have gone to, or president-elects have gone to different churches, but very often it is St. John's Church. He's now going to be taking a very short drive back to the White House. You see him in the new vehicle. Secret Service call it the Beast. It is a state-of-the-art vehicle. Has a lot of gizmos we don't even know about that they are keeping secret, but it's safe to say it is a very safe vehicle, perhaps the safest anywhere on the planet.
And once they're at the White House, the Obamas and the Bidens and the Bushes, they will all have coffee. That's shortly after 10 a.m. Eastern in a little while. It's an opportunity, David, for the Bushes to say goodbye to their house and also to welcome the new occupants of the White House.
Absolutely, and I must say that George W. Bush goes out amidst controversy, just as he came in that way. But for all of that, he and his team have handled this in a classy way. This handoff has been one of the classiest, most cooperative, most collaborative we've seen, so that these two men, who both are making their mark on history, have developed a relationship over several conversations. And in contrast to some earlier inaugurations, when the relationship has been extremely frosty, as it was between Harry Truman and Dwight Eisenhower back in 1953. These two men are going to, I think they're going to hit it off just fine. It'll be a very pleasant ride up that avenue.
And I remember when Bill Clinton almost seemed unwilling to leave the White House. Remember, he was a bit late in leaving. Holding on. He was a little bit late in leaving the White House, and that's not the case with George W. Bush.
And we see the motorcade now making its way over to the White House from across the street from St. John's Church, near the Hay Adams Hotel. For those of our viewers who've been to Washington, near Blair House, the official residence of the White House for guests. That's where the Obamas have been staying the last few days after they left the Hay Adams Hotel. It's a tiny little drive across Pennsylvania Avenue, the walkway. Soledad, as you watch this, I want to point out we might be hearing some singing in the background. Up on Capitol Hill behind us, the San Francisco Boys Chorus and the San Francisco Girls Chorus, they began singing just a little while ago.
Oh, it's so beautiful, isn't it? It's been such a treat to have listen in on the rehearsal. Let's listen for just a moment.
So nice, beautiful. The San Francisco Boys Chorus, the San Francisco Girls Chorus, they're going to be performing for about 20 minutes up on Capitol Hill. But this is the north lawn of the White House, the north portico. You see the car bringing the Obamas over to the steps there. Anderson, they're going to be walking up those stairs. I assume the Bushes are going to be there to greet them.
What we're seeing really is something which is timed down to the minute. And everything that we are going to be seeing today is something that has happened in transitions in the past. This is one of the rituals of democracy. We're a country that doesn't have many rituals, doesn't have many sort of traditions of government, but this is one day in which we will see many of our rituals on display, our traditions play out.
Many of these traditions go back over 150 years. They were developed in the early part of the 19th century, and the president and the president-elect joining each other to go to the Capitol, that goes back to the early 19th century. And I think that's what gives this a special poignance, because we see this with every transfer of power. And what is fundamentally important about today is not only about Barack Obama himself, but that in a democracy, power can be transferred peacefully. For thousands of years, that has not been the case among humankind.
That's the Vice President, Joe Biden and Jill Biden. They arrived first in that limousine. They're walking up the stairs. I wonder if anyone is going to greet them formally or just walking inside? Looks like they're walking inside. The current Vice President Dick Cheney and Lynn Cheney will be there to greet them as well. Dan Lothian is on the north lawn of the White House, our White House correspondent. Dan, set the scene for us a little bit. You're right on location.
That's right. They just pulled in right behind me, as you saw. They are at the North Portico where Vice President-elect Joe Biden and Jill Biden have just entered the White House. We will be seeing President-elect Barack Obama and soon-to-be First Lady Michelle Obama also entering the White House. We expect that President Bush will come out to greet them. They will be having that coffee that you've been talking about. Along with some congressional leaders meeting in the Blue Room, which is up on the second floor of the White House, looking out.
Hey, Joe, hold on a second. I just want to point out to our viewers that the new first family, they're walking upstairs, and the Bushes indeed are there.
That's right. There you see them greeting the first family. They will be going inside, and as I was talking about, they will be meeting in the Blue Room, which is up on the second floor of the White House, looking out at the South Lawn. Here, the Obamas entering the place that will be both home and office.
There they're going inside. I wonder if they, of the microphones on the scene, Anderson, if they managed to pick up any of the little chit-chat, what was going on. Every word is historic right now. Historians will be writing about this for many generations to come, and all of us who are watching in the United States and around the world, I think it's fair to say we're really privileged to have this front row seat to history.
I don't think any transfer of power has been as documented as this one, really, for the last several days. We know that after a brief time, the White House, the President and President-elect will head toward the Capitol. They'll ride together. President Bush sitting on President-elect's right-hand side, as is part of the tradition.
For all the folks you see down there, many of the phrases we heard yesterday were about being part of history and also a pilgrimage, literally a pilgrimage to come and pay tribute to Dr. King yesterday, but be part of something much bigger than themselves today. It's a really nice feeling being down in the crowd. As much as you're stuck down there, you just get the sense of, I mean, not to be cheesy, but brotherhood and people really looking forward to a new day in some way, shape, or form.
And when Barack Obama goes into the Oval Office, on the desk will be a letter written to him from George W. Bush, and nobody knows what is in that. We know that George W. Bush wrote it probably over the weekend at Camp David, wanted to put a lot of thought into it about what he was going to say to the next president.
They're supposed to spend about 40 minutes inside for this coffee, as it's called. David, they call it a coffee. I don't know if they're drinking coffee or what they're drinking, maybe hot chocolate, maybe tea, but it's called a coffee, and they'll just sit around and have a conversation. One family moving out of a house, another family getting ready to move in.
Well, coffee has been a long tradition. There was a time when there was brandy. But that was early on, and we had a vice president back in 1865, Andrew Johnson, who woke up feeling sick, got heavily into brandy, and got totally drunk, gave an acceptance speech. They almost had to kick him out of the whole thing.
And just about every president has accompanied another president to the Capitol. There have been a few exceptions. I think John Adams refused to go to the inaugural for...
John Adams was not a happy man when he left the presidency. He wanted to get the heck out of Dodge and get out of federal power.
He also, according to from what I've read, had some concerns about, because it was the first time we were going from one party to another.
Yes.
He had some concerns that his followers, if he attended, there might be some violence.
That's right. We were moving from the Federalist Party to Thomas Jefferson, and Jefferson was a real counter-revolution. Jefferson was a big inspiration for Barack Obama from the Declaration. There are major links from Jefferson through Lincoln to Obama.
When you consider that Barack Obama's entire campaign was about George W. Bush and was about replacing George W. Bush and linked John McCain to George W. Bush, and the relationship they seem to have established in the post-election period is really quite remarkable.
Well, that's right. One of the reasons I think they get along is that Barack Obama ran in strong opposition to George W. Bush, but it wasn't personal. It wasn't ad hominem in terms of attacks. One of the reasons that Truman was so angry at Dwight Eisenhower was he thought he was personal in the campaign and had campaigned against him and been really nasty toward him. And Eisenhower just sharply disagreed, but that's why they had a frosty ride. Herbert Hoover and Franklin Roosevelt had a terrible relationship on this car ride going up. But this one's going to be very positive.
As we watch these crowds, it's really amazing to see how many people are there. We know that in 1965, for the inauguration of LBJ, Lyndon Baines Johnson, there were more than 1 million people who were on the National Mall. That's the largest crowd ever in the history of Washington, D.C., and by all accounts, that number is going to go up. We don't know how many people will eventually be there. I know that the U.S. Park Service will have their estimates. Others will have their estimates. But, David, you want to weigh in?
How many can it hold? Well,
they said if it was fully occupied between the U.S. Capitol all the way past the Washington Monument up to the Lincoln Memorial, and they've opened it all. There are some estimates it could be 2-3 million people, but who knows?
The biggest one was LBJ's.
LBJ was the biggest back in 1965, and that was a huge group of people. You see there, Anderson, you see the Washington Monument, and it's not that packed. There's still space around the Washington Monument. As you pointed out earlier, that means from the Washington Monument further back to the Lincoln Memorial, there's going to be even more space. So I guess if some latecomers, they want to just get out there and show up now, if they can get through the security, they'll be in relatively good shape. Everybody has to go through magnetometers just to show up, and there have been really long lines just to go through those metal detectors.
Yeah, there's still an hour and a half, as we said, or a little bit more than that. The swearing in is at 12 o'clock, as is written into our Constitution. So clearly, we did see a lot of people gathered around the reflecting pool near the Lincoln Memorial. I think some people just wanted to kind of be around there to watch this event, but clearly there is still some room, and we'll probably be getting some crowd estimates a little bit later on. That's the scene by the reflecting pool by the Lincoln Memorial. As you can see, some people hanging around there, but clearly a lot of green space you're seeing, so there is still space.
There's some space if people want to still show up. Good luck. Campbell Brown is here at the museum, and John King, they're at the museum. They've got members of the best political team on television. They're going to be joining us throughout this beautiful and historic day. Campbell, there's no doubt that, and I look at the faces of all those analysts you have with you, they're about as excited as all the rest of the folks out there.
Wolf, Bill Bennett especially, he keeps tearing up. I don't know, the emotion of the moment really getting to him. No, in all seriousness, I will talk about this, Wolf, in the minutes ahead and the hours ahead, frankly, but clearly you have witnessed a lot of inaugurations, and we'll get into how different this is. I mean, it's undeniable. The crowds, the size of the crowd, the emotion present among so many people who have traveled all over the country to be here for this. Clearly, nothing we have seen in recent history compares. So when we talk to you in just a little bit, Wolf, they will have many thoughts to share on all of that. John King as well, with all of his technology and toys. We'll see you in a few.
Yeah, we've got a lot of new technology that we're going to be showing our viewers, including a moment at noon when we've encouraged folks who are there to snap a shot, to take a picture, send it to us. And we're going to do something special in the hour or two or three afterwards and show a three-dimensional, unique vantage point for all of our viewers of that moment when Barack Obama becomes the next president of the United States. And we're under 2 hours away now from that moment, Anderson. But you see the swarm of humanity there. And these are people who waited patiently. Some of these folks, they began arriving when you were on the air last night, 10 p.m. Eastern. The crowds were beginning to fill up.
And they were excited to be there. Everyone knew on the mall there was going to be a security sweep around 3 a.m., so everyone would have to leave the mall at one point. So it wasn't as if people could camp out there all night long and reserve a space. They had to come back in the early pre-dawn hours, but a lot of people did. Clearly, they wanted to get as close as they could. And I think, Soledad, you spent a lot of time on the mall there yesterday as well. I mean, even if people knew they weren't going to see Barack Obama in person, it didn't really matter. They just wanted to kind of be there and wanted to kind of experience it.
Yeah, there's no question that people who are even sort of in the shots that we're looking here will not get to see anything really up close and personal, are going to experience something amazing because they're in this crowd that looks like it could reach that 2 million level. I think there is this sense of coming here for something that is important to America, a step in our history, not just the inauguration of a president, as much as we are obviously here to celebrate that day. It's sort of bigger than that even.
This is also a president with elect with a 78% approval rating coming into office. And I don't know about any of you, but I cannot recall any president being sworn in on that kind of a wave of approval.
Yeah, that's going to be hard to keep that number up as high as it is right now, but clearly a lot of enthusiasm and hope for Barack Obama. Let's go into the crowd right now. Kate Baldwin is down on the mall. Tell our viewers, Kate, where you are and what's going on.
Hey there, Wolf. Well, as you can see, for the past few days since we've been out here, I've been winning over a lot of friends. Just take a look at all the people that have joined me out here from all over the country, all different walks of life, all wanting to be here to be part of this whole experience. We're here on the 6th Street Mall. I'm going to walk you over here a little bit just to show you the other group of people we've been meeting. You see this little bit of open space that I'm walking into. It's funny. I'll show you why it's a little bit open right now. Because right behind the camera, right here, is one of those major, huge jumbotrons, Wolf. And that's where everyone is scoping out their spot, trying to get a good location in order to see the swearing in. Because as you saw from that original shot behind me, they're not going to be able to see Barack Obama in any short. All of my friends here are very excited, all trying to say hello to their family and friends back home, and they're all having a lot of fun here.
All right, Kate is down there. She's got some good security, some good protection. She's going to need it in the middle of that crowd. A lot of happy people, I have to say. Soledad, when you were down there yesterday, I just assume people want to just come up to you and talk to you, get a picture with you, and share in the excitement.
Yeah, they did. But, you know, we also had an opportunity to interview some of these legends of the civil rights movement. And so you would have a chance to have an interview with Fred Gray and then tell people, this is Rosa Parks' attorney. And people would say, oh, my goodness, and start taking pictures of him. I think there's a sense of history, again, and a direct line from the work that was done from the associates of Martin Luther King and Dr. King himself to today. People clearly making that connection and all of a sudden wanting to be part of the history that these gentlemen and women represented. It was a wonderful thing. They got it. They really got that connection, and it was a great feeling. So yeah, a couple people want to take my picture too, but really much more interested in Fred Gray, and Mrs. Abernathy was on our air, and Clarence Jones, and those folks were really the stars of yesterday.
All of us are going to have an opportunity to tell our friends and family and children, David, and grandchildren, our own personal stories, how we got here. Even on this morning, there was incredible security, long lines, but we managed to get to where we are.
Everybody needed to learn today how to play the game, so to speak. How do you convince a big, burly security guard, please let me through?
I was with Wolf.
Were you?
They all know Wolf.
Yeah, they did. They waved him through.
That way because I was pushing my way to the crowd.
I had to walk 2 miles, but a lot of the security guards, oh, I know that fellow. That's James Carville. Let's let him through.
James Carville had a great line. He said, when I saw him this morning, he's a great sports fan, as am I. He said, you know what? Today we play injured. Because he had to go through some long lines to get here, and so he's going to play. He's not really injured, for those of you who love James, as all of us do, but he did have to make a little trek to get here. It's just an exciting time to be in the nation's capital. I'm sure people all over the country, indeed probably around the world, are saying to themselves right now, it's great to watch it on CNN, it's great to see what we're seeing, but you know what, it would have been nice to be there and to be able to tell future generations that we were there on this historic day. As I look at the crowd, Soledad, it's a lot of African Americans, but there are a lot of white people, a lot of Asians. This is really a diverse crowd out there.
Absolutely, and so many people have come in internationally as well. I mean, for us yesterday, the number of Africans, the number of people from South Africa, the number of people from Europe who all wanted to talk about this moment. It was really quite an incredible thing, and you're right. For a lot of people, I think it feels like the culmination, a moment in time of a lot of hard work for the nation, not just individuals. And so everybody was really, really excited.
Yeah, I think that's one of the interesting questions yesterday as we celebrated properly the Martin Luther King birthday and recalled what a civil rights leader he was, and compared Barack Obama to Martin Luther King as in some ways people see him as his successor, but it's also true that he has this second larger role in some ways, and that is that he's president of all the people. And I think today is about all the people. So that having that the whites, the blacks, the young, the old, the Asians, it gives you a sense of oneness.
The crowds truly reflect
Hold on one second. I want to point out to our viewers, that's Muhammad Ali, who's up there on the VIP area on Capitol Hill, right near where Barack Obama will be sworn in. What a great moment for not only Muhammad Ali, but for all the fans of his, all the people who love him, to see that he has reached this moment in his life as well. It's just a thrilling moment for him, his family, and his friends. It's still...
It was his birthday, Soledad pointed out.
He turned 67 on Saturday, the same day as Michelle Obama.
67 years old, Muhammad Ali. And he's still around. He's the champ, and he's always going to be the champ. There's no doubt about that. But go ahead. You were making a point, David, and I interrupted you.
Well, it's the notion that I think that it's very, very important to see Barack Obama as someone who has been a breakthrough figure for the African-American community and really is the fulfillment of many important parts of Martin Luther King's dream. But I think it's also important to see him as president and not as a civil rights leader. That he's primarily elected as president who has responsibilities in civil rights.
I think that throwback always to Lincoln is part of that. I mean, it was Lincoln who talked about sacrifice to hold the nation together, sacrifice so the states wouldn't secede from the nation. So he's got that two front. One, the civil rights legend, the civil rights icon, but also President Lincoln, who was the president and who also took the nation through a very difficult time. And I think those two fronts are very important.
At the same time, though, it is important to point out he is also a politician. And as much as this is a day about tradition and transcending politics, months from now, this country might again be divided very sharply along political lines.
All right, guys, I want to take a quick break right now because they're getting ready to introduce the members of the United States Supreme Court who will be there, and the president-elect will be sworn in by the Chief Justice, John Roberts. Jeff Toobin is standing by for some analysis of what we're about to see and hear. Our coverage of the inauguration of Barack Obama continues from Washington, D.C. right after this.
Sick of traveling for meetings? Tired of paying more and taking longer?
Inside, Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, Jill Biden, Joe Biden, they're having coffee with the Bushes, as they say, about a 40-minute coffee before they all get into their respective limousines and head up to Capitol Hill for the swearing-in ceremony. It's supposed to take place just a minute or two or three before noon Eastern. That's when the Chief Justice of the United States, John Roberts, will swear in Barack Obama as the 44th President of the United States. Right now, all the VIPs are arriving on Capitol Hill to participate. Anderson Cooper, as we see some of these VIPs, some of the names, some of the faces will be familiar.
Dustin Hoffman.
Others won't be, but Dustin Hoffman's face.
Before that was Martin Luther King III, son of Martin Luther King Jr.
Yeah, the seats are still pretty empty up there in those VIP seats, but pretty soon they'll be full. And how excited are these folks that they are not only going to be watching the swearing-in ceremony, but are only going to be a few steps away from what's going on.
Now, why Dustin Hoffman, why does he get to sit up there? Has he paid? Is this one of those paid seats, or is this some invitation?
He got invited.
Yeah, you're invited by, for example, Senator Dianne Feinstein of California is in charge of the congressional aspect of the inauguration. So she, as all of her colleagues, they can distribute tickets, but she has some better tickets, shall we say, than others. I don't know if Dustin Hoffman is her guest or others. But it's clearly, if you're a big shot on Capitol Hill, you have clout, and you get to play some of those guests.
The platform, or the main platform, which is level, is often the president-elect has a lot of his own guests there and family and that sort of thing. And then there are seats up, and those are the ones that the members of Congress have a lot of guests there. So it'll be a very interesting mix. What wonderful seats.
I was the CNN reporter up on that platform for the 93 inauguration of Bill Clinton and the 97 inauguration as well. And I must say, it's an exciting moment. Our Ed Henry, our senior White House correspondent, is up there. I want to go to him shortly because he's going to have a special guest, the first of several we hope he'll be able to talk to. But as we watch this scene, you can't help but notice how majestic the west front of the U.S. Capitol is. And remind our viewers a little bit, Anderson, that it was Ronald Reagan who decided to move this ceremony to to the west front as opposed to the other side, the east front.
Well, it's interesting. If you read about this, everyone says, well, this was because, one, to save money, but also to give more people the chance to get a look at it. But from David Gergen just the other day, we also learned that there was another reason.
He wanted to look west because he wanted to look toward California, his beloved California. And it was, I think it was very, very wise to move this, because now we can have this mammoth of events that you could never have on the other side of the Capitol. So many more people can take part.
Ronald Reagan certainly knew the value of a good picture, and there's nothing like that sweep across the mall.
But don't forget, this is a building that was completed by slaves.
Yes, absolutely. John King has reminded us of that on several occasions.
You can't help but think of that today. This is a building that Abraham Lincoln said needed to be
completed. The former president of the United States, Jimmy Carter, just walking in as well. This will be the 7th inauguration ceremony held on the west front of the Capitol. It's the and it does give a lot of people an opportunity to crowd in on the mall in front and see what's going on.
Former President Clinton and Mrs. Clinton are expected to arrive at any moment as well. And again, the Obamas and the Bushes right now are inside the White House. They will very soon be leaving and heading to Capitol Hill together, as is part of the tradition. And that's something you'll want to watch as well.
The theme for this 2009 inauguration is renewing America's promise. I assume, David Gergen, that the theme is something that the incoming president and his team determined.
I don't think George W. Bush chose the theme of renewing America's promise. Yes, no, it is very much one that the Obama team has chosen, and I think it's very consistent with their whole idea of change. And this is renewal, because there's a sense, I think part of the joy that goes into this and the celebration is that there has been such disappointment in the last few years. And these have not been good years from the eyes of many, many Americans, and they're hungering for change.
The speech itself is chosen from a line from the Gettysburg Address, and the line, it's a new birth of freedom. And that line itself, Lincoln was referring to those who died to preserve the nation. And again, think of those connections to those who died to preserve the nation back in Lincoln's time, and then fast forward to the 60s and even before, the 50s and the 40s, those who died to push the nation in a certain direction, who got no credit, who are not known, who are not remembered, but gave tremendously for this country as well. I think that's a really interesting phrase for a speech.
That's Donna Brazil, our Democratic strategist, our good friend. She's lucky enough to get a good seat up there, and we're going to be speaking with her a little bit later, but she'll be one of the, she'll be very, very close to what's going on, as she should be. She spent many, many years working for the Democratic Party, working for the Democrats, and she is as thrilled as anyone to be attending this historic event.
And when you talk to people in the incoming administration about their theme for this inauguration, I think what they're hoping is that it's going to be this convergence of crisis and opportunity at the same time. The problems we have today, we're going to have tomorrow, but they believe that Obama can be transformative and create opportunity out of the problems that we confront.
They absolutely believe they get leverage from the sense of crisis, that they can create urgency and push the Congress to go forward.
It's interesting how the president-elect has pushed that back on the people consistently. That urgency of now in his speeches is always, and you all, you in the crowd, you people we see in this shot, it can't be me, it has to be all of you. It's a really interesting strategy, and I think it also helps buy him goodwill and time, a little time, because he's got to have some results really quickly.
I want to go down to Jeff Toobin, our senior legal analyst and the author of the important book, The Nine on the U.S. Supreme Court. And Jeff, let's talk a little bit about the justices who will be here. There will be two justices administering the oath of office, one for the vice president and one for the president. Let's talk about who they are, who the other the eight justices altogether who will be here. One justice, I'm told, by you that is, won't be here, but talk a little bit about the Supreme Court's role and what's about to happen.
Well, this is a big day for Chief Justice John Roberts, too, because this is the first time he will administer the oath of office to a president. He was nominated by President Bush in 2005. He's only the 17th Chief Justice in our history, and we've had 44 presidents as of today, and it gives you some idea for how long they serve. He's only 53 years old, only 6 years older than Barack Obama. but he can expect to swear in many presidents. I don't know if he'll match Chief Justice John Marshall's record of 9 swearing-ins, but he will certainly, in all likelihood, have many. So he will swear in the president. The person who will swear in Vice President Biden is John Paul Stevens, who is the oldest justice at 88 years old, and you can always identify him because he's the justice who wears a bow tie all the time. The question, of course, is how many justices will leave during the Obama presidency. President Bush had 2 very important appointments, Chief Justice Roberts and Samuel Alito. He actually will probably be there today. He was not there last week when the justices welcomed the president-elect and vice president-elect, and it was, I think, somewhat of a statement on the fact that Alito was voted against by then-Senators Biden and Obama, and I think there's some hard feelings there. They also voted against Chief Justice Roberts, but there are apparently fewer hard feelings there. The question of who will still be on the Supreme Court when Obama leaves is, of course, one of the great mysteries. We never know exactly who's going to leave, but obviously Justice Stevens at 88 is a possibility to leave. Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg is 75 years old. Justice David Souter is 69 years old and known to want to leave. But this is a big part of the Bush legacy, the 2 nominees. Are we seeing 2? Do we? I'm trying to look. Oh, yeah, there's Justice Thomas arriving with his wife. And there's Justice O'Connor, who is still, though she's retired from the court 3 years ago, she's in great shape. She's traveling around the country, focusing on judicial independence and participation for young people in politics. As you can see, she's walking with a very steady gait. She's a former Arizona politician and still a great politician herself, always out there meeting and greeting.
All right, Jeff, I want you to stand by because we're going to continue all of our coverage of the inauguration of Barack Obama. We have our reporters, our analysts, they're standing by, our special guests as well, and our coverage will continue right after this. Of the House of Representatives, they're walking in, the leadership being introduced. James Clyburn, the Democrat from South Carolina, he's the highest-ranking African-American in the U.S. Congress. He was here with us yesterday, Anderson, and I have to tell you, when we saw the videotape, we had a camera in, when they replayed Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s historic 1963 I Have a Dream speech, the tears were simply going down his cheek. And even when we were live on the air yesterday talking about it, he had to wipe away the tears from his eyes.
If you're wondering at home, every minute of this really is scheduled down. There's Barney Frank, of course, who has been playing such a role in this economic crisis at this point. We now know President-elect Obama and President George Bush are expected to leave the White House 8 minutes from now. That will be something, again, that we will want to be watching. Also, the members of the U.S. Senators will be coming in at around the same time. I want to bring in some of our panel who are downstairs at the News Museum, also watching this as we do. Campbell Brown is down there. Campbell, let's hear from your folks a little bit just about their thoughts on this day as we watch the members of the House stream in.
Well, Anderson, we've been talking about previous inaugurations. Obviously, I've got Bill Bennett with me, James Carville, Paul Begala, Tara Wall, John King, all of whom have witnessed many inaugurations. We won't say how many. But let me ask you, Paul and James especially, because certainly you had a pretty exclusive perch for Bill Clinton's inauguration. Paul, what was it like? And put it in context compared to what we're seeing now.
Well, this moment, it's just wonderful. I think these 2 presidents are both very personable people, and they're, I think, having pretty cordial coffee. I think what's remarkably different from the day Bill Clinton took office is his challenges were almost universally agreed to be domestic. And this president, as enormous as his domestic challenges are, his international ones are as well. And I was struck by this a few days ago, actually. I was in Abuja, Nigeria, And the main road that the airport is on is named after Bill Clinton. You come to the end of that road, and now there's the biggest billboard I've ever seen. There's a picture of Barack Obama, and it says the whole world supports Obama. And I think especially today, he's going to be speaking to the entire world in a way that a new president probably hasn't since John F. Kennedy. This inaugural will be followed around the world like we have not seen in Barack Obama's lifetime or mine.
James?
You know, this is something unbelievable. I mean, the crowd, just the entire thing here. I don't know how many adjectives, and I just used one, we use today to describe this, but every time that I see that picture, I just cannot take my eye off the visual. You know, we always have the House of Representatives and the Supreme Court. I mean, they come to every one. I don't know what this estimate will be, but it's going to be north of 2 million people. And this is a remarkable thing if I've seen in my 64 years. I'll promise you that.
Bill Bennett?
Well, this is, I sat up there when I was cabinet-level drug czar for George Herbert Walker Bush at his inaugural. And then the only other time I was present in the crowd was for John Kennedy's. I was a high school senior here in Washington, Gonzaga High School, and sat there and listened to that speech.
Were there parallels, do you think, to Kennedy? Certainly the Obama crowd is trying to draw parallels, has on occasion.
There are parallels, but I think this is, we're all looking for modifiers, adjectives, as James said. This is unique, obviously, the election of a black man, President of the United States, 146 years after the Emancipation Proclamation. It's extraordinary. Just walking through the crowds this morning, the sense of jubilation. A lot of people know I'm on the Republican side, the conservative side. They say, Bill, you got to stand up and cheer. I said, I will stand up and cheer. It's America, and it's a great day for all Americans.
Tari, do you agree with that sentiment? Also a conservative yourself?
I do. I mean, I think throughout the day we talked about kind of putting the politics aside for the moment and relishing in this moment and the significance of this moment. We also talked about saying the words that just escape you. I mean, there are only so many words you can really put on this moment that signify it. The most recent inauguration, of course, that I can remember on a personal level that I attended, of course, was George W. Bush. But one of the more poignant inaugurations that stand out in my mind is that of Ronald Reagan. And he faced similar times, similar economic straits, if you will, inflation, inherited a recession. And one of the things he said at the time in his inauguration was, government is not the solution. Government is the problem. Remember, that was one of the most pivotal parts of his speech. And I think that we need to, moving forward, as we dissect this after this day, I think we will all need to keep that in mind going forward. And he encouraged bringing down spending and not raising taxes in the midst of a recession and the dangers against that. So I think some of those things will come about as we move forward. But I think that was one of the most pivotal parts that showed what his presidency was going to be about.
Reagan also had felt that sense of goodwill from many Democrats as well as Republicans, John King.
And Reagan had the country behind him, and Barack Obama is the first president since then to have the country behind him in such a big way. The first inaugural of Bill Clinton, he won the election with 43% of the vote. So he had people to convince out of the country. George W. Bush won with 49% of the vote after a Supreme Court contested election in the Florida recount and all that. He had some convincing to do. He acted boldly out of the box, Bush did, but he had some convincing of the country to do. Barack Obama comes in with 53% of the vote, and because of the history, the goodwill of so many people. Consider these exchanges, Campbell. I asked David Axelrod this morning, the architect of the Obama campaign, what does it mean to you? He said, I don't have the words. Steve Schmidt, the McCain architect, he said, I'm very impressed with this guy. I wish him well. That is where we are in political Washington right now, together.
An extraordinary amount of political capital, Anderson. We will, of course, find out what he does with that in the days ahead and, frankly, how long this honeymoon will last.
We're just moments away from President-elect Obama leaving the White House. We're going to take a short break, and then we'll bring that to you live. We'll be right back.
Every minute counts between the onset of a heart attack and the administration of treatment. Time is vital. Being able to transmit an ECG ahead of a patient means that doctors can assess the ECG and start preparing treatment before the patient arrives. People focused, healthcare simplified.
Wherever I travel, whatever happens, this place is with me. This is my South Africa. Tell me about yours.
Share your experiences. Visit mysouthafrica.tv. South Africa, it's possible.
The Qatar Financial Center is creating a new energy, which is helping Qatar to become one of the world's most dynamic and diversified places to do business.
It's 36 to 38 degrees Celsius. No higher, no lower. It's soft, but not too soft. It's just enough to smooth things out. It's all of this, halfway to anywhere, with plenty of time to spare. The Qatar Airways Premium Terminal in Doha. 5-star service for first and business class passengers. Qatar Airways, world's 5-star airline.
Desmond Tutu, man of God, trailblazer of reconciliation in South Africa.
You do get to a point where you are holding on to a belief by the skin of your teeth.
The Archbishop goes global with his new project, The Elders.
Reveal Wednesday on CNN.
I value truth the most. As a journalist, there is no more treasured commodity than the truth.
No matter what your circumstance, people always have an important story to tell.
You rethink a story that you thought you knew. See it from a different light, a different angle.
Or a lot of times it's human drama. Sometimes it's something entertaining, funny. All these things go into making a great story.
Their opinions, no matter how controversial they are, they matter because the whole world is watching.
There's the governor of California, Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's here for the inauguration. Maria Shriver, his wife, as a lot of our viewers know, is a huge Democrat. The mayor of San Francisco as well, right?
The Attorney General of California, Jerry Brown, right there off to the left.
Jerry Brown, the former Attorney General, now the mayor of Oakland. He may be running for governor because Arnold Schwarzenegger is term limited. So
he's still Attorney General.
Attorney General, that's right, you're right. He was the mayor of Oakland, now he's the Attorney General. I stand corrected. You're right. In fact, I just saw him the other night in Washington.
And we are literally minutes away from Barack Obama leaving the White House with President Bush. Both men will travel together by limousine to the Capitol. As we've said before, as is tradition, President Bush will sit to the right of Barack Obama. I'm not exactly sure how that tradition started. Do you know, David?
No, but it's the more powerful person always sits on the right in the Washington tradition. But Anderson, I was recalling as this is done with such precision, and you think everybody gets up at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning to do this. But Mike Deaver told the story about 1981 when Ronald Reagan was being inaugurated. He went over to Blair House at 9 o'clock in the morning. He walked in, there was Nancy working on her hair, and he said, "Where's the governor?" And she said, "I think he's in the bedroom." And he walked in there, and the curtains were all drawn, and there was this sort of, Ronald Reagan was asleep at 9 o'clock in the morning, and he walks in, and Deaver says, "Governor, it's 9 o'clock." And Reagan said, "Yeah?" And he said, "You got to get up. It's a couple hours. What, you're going to be inaugurated?" And he said, "Do I have to get up?" But, you know, he had a very relaxed attitude. Bill Bennett will remember toward this, and it made a better presidency.
We're just a little bit more than an hour away from the moment when he will be sworn in, and every minute, maybe even sometimes every second, is very carefully choreographed by those in charge of this transition. And as Anderson just pointed out, within a moment or so, we should be seeing Barack Obama and George W. Bush getting ready to leave the White House.
You look at the picture that we just showed, which I think is taken from around 6th Street, or perhaps around 12th Street. I'm not sure which of our cameras that was. But just the crowd, the amount of people who are already there, no chance they're going to, I mean, you could see the Capitol is basically a small dot on the horizon from where some of these people are standing. But that certainly has not dampened their enthusiasm. There's more than 20 Jumbotron screens.
There's Ted Kennedy. He made it for this inauguration. He's been suffering, as a lot of our viewers know, from brain cancer. He had a tumor removed only earlier last year. And he has reached this point where he is here to see Barack Obama, a man that he endorsed, going against Hillary Clinton for the Democratic presidential nomination, and now Ted Kennedy. He's looking pretty good, I think.
We're told that his office, they didn't have enough tickets to meet all the demand, and they got some extra tickets last minute from other people who hadn't used them. Late Monday, according to an aide to Kennedy, a 70-year-old Washington, D.C. cab driver who was African-American showed up at Kennedy's office pleading for tickets for himself and his grandson. They were able to get 2 tickets for that cab driver and for his grandson.
And Ted Kennedy's endorsement of Barack Obama was so important during the primaries because...
Here they come. Here they come. These are the leaders of the Senate. They're now walking up. But go ahead, Gloria.
No, it was so important because what it said was that the Democratic establishment was starting to move to Barack Obama, and everyone had always assumed that the establishment would be for Hillary Clinton. And he was, of course, talked into that endorsement in part by Caroline Kennedy, who could well become the next senator from the state of New York. If Hillary Clinton were to get confirmed, I think the governor would make an appointment very, very quickly after that.
David, you've worked in the White House. We're looking right now at 1042 at the White House, where we anticipate...
so this is Capitol Hill. I think no, this is the White House.
We're looking right into the North Portico.
Lynn Cheney and Joe Biden. The outgoing, the incoming second lady.
David, you've been in the White House, and you've been in these kind of meetings between people. I mean, when it's a ceremonial meeting, do they talk substance at all, or on a day like this, will it simply be a polite conversation?
It tends to be very light conversation, unless there's something new that's breaking, and then the 2 presidents may want to confer on that or pull themselves off to a corner. But this is, I think, is much, much lighter. It's intended to be, because there's such a sense of nostalgia, too, for the Bushes. This is not an easy moment for them, leaving the White House in this way. And I think everybody also feels the reverence of the moment. This is, for democracy, this is a sacred moment.
Barbara Bush arriving at the Capitol, getting there early in order to take her seat, arriving with former President Bush.
And don't forget, George W. Bush has already had a luncheon for all the former presidents. So he and Barack Obama had been able to talk about the loneliness of the presidency and other such things. And so they've become a bit acquainted before this meeting today.
The building on the side, by the way, of the mall, that's the Smithsonian. There you see the father of the current president, George H.W. Bush. And we saw Barbara Bush, the mother, just a little while ago. These are United States senators who have been introduced, and they're walking in to the U.S. Capitol right now, the West Front, where the swearing-in ceremony will take place. And now we're back at the North Portico of the White House, where we see Michelle Obama and Laura Bush. They're getting ready to go into a limousine. They'll be driving up together. Soledad, I guess volumes will be written about the outfits that these women are wearing.
You know, and absolutely, because we still talk about what other people have worn, certainly to the inauguration ball. That's a critical one. This outfit that Michelle Obama is wearing has been described as a handsome maize-colored suit. She's really gotten some great kudos for her fashion sense.
And we should point out, this is the last time that Laura Bush will be leaving the White House. From here, they will directly after the swearing-in, they'll be led down the steps to the east side of the Capitol onto a waiting helicopter, and they will leave Washington, D.C.
They'll go off to Andrews Air Force Base outside of Washington in Maryland. They'll board that huge 747, which we all know as Air Force One, but it won't be called Air Force One for that ride to Texas, because he is no longer going to be president of the United States.
The crowds on the mall, not seeing the pictures of the 2 presidents about to leave the White House. They're being entertained by the Marine Corps Band, which is still playing, and that's the music you hear in the background.
We should point out that when we see eventually the incoming Vice President Joe Biden and the outgoing Vice President Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney, in fact, here we see it right now, is in a wheelchair. And some of our viewers might be surprised why he's in a wheelchair. He was moving into his new home in McLean, Virginia, just outside Washington, D.C., moving some boxes, we're told, by his press secretary, and he twisted his back. And his doctors recommended you're going to have to do the inauguration, the swearing-in ceremony, and all of that in a wheelchair. And there we see he's being wheeled into his limousine. Joe Biden is walking with him. It's a tradition. The outgoing vice president, the incoming vice president, they'll drive over together, just as the outgoing incoming presidents will be driving together. I guess people are going to make points about the fact that Dick Cheney winds up these 8 years, David Gergen, in a wheelchair. It's not the way he would have liked to have been seen on this day.
I imagine the tone of this conversation in this car will be quite different from that of the two presidents, because Joe Biden went after Dick Cheney very hard, and Dick Cheney didn't like it at all and came back in kind. Maybe they've got something to talk about now with a pulled back, going up the street.
I think Cheney's comments have also, post-election, have also had a bit more of an edge.
Much more aggressive.
To them. Moving your own boxes when you're out of power.
Having said all that, Dick Cheney and Joe Biden, they're real politicians. They understand how the game is played. And when they get into that car, or when they have that little private meeting, I suspect it'll be rather decent and civil and won't be too bitter or anything like that. Just based on how I know these two politicians.
Still would like to be a fly on the wall in that limousine.
Right. And they have a pre-existing relationship because Cheney served in the Congress when Biden was in the Senate. But still, I think, particularly in terms of the war on terror and the closing of Guantanamo, et cetera.
All right, now momentarily, the President of the United States, George W. Bush, and the incoming President, Barack Obama, they'll be walking out. In fact, we see them beginning to walk out through this beautiful door at the North Portico. You know what? I want to listen and see if we hear anything as they get into the limousine. Presidential seal on the side of that door. When Barack Obama, by the way, earlier was in that same vehicle. It's called the Beast. It's a brand new presidential limo. The seal was not there. The seal is only placed on the side of that door once the President of the United States is in that vehicle. And as we all know, the President of the United States, George Bush, is in that vehicle. He's sitting to the right of Barack Obama, which is the tradition as these two men make the short drive from this part of Pennsylvania Avenue to the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue up on Capitol Hill. It shouldn't take but a few moments. I suspect they're not going to have to worry about traffic, Anderson, as they make that ride.
One of the cool things, actually, about the new vehicle that President-elect Barack Obama has is the flags on the front of it. They actually have little lights that illuminate the flags at night. American flags are flying at night. Obviously, they're supposed to be illuminated, so there's little LED lights that keep both those flags lit.
This would be the car equivalent of Air Force One. It's got some really, really sophisticated and cool things inside, but most important, David Gergen, it's extremely armored and well protected. This is the safest kind of vehicle you can be in if you're Commander-in-Chief of the United States.
It's probably the safest vehicle in the United States today. It is. I imagine it has a number of James Bondish features to it.
Well, I can tell you, it's got a heavy armor, at least 5 inches thick, 8-inch thick doors, run-flat tires, bulletproof glass. Perhaps most importantly, it's got a 10-disc CD player.
New definition to the word "the bubble" for the president. Living inside that bubble, that's something that Barack Obama has said that he's going to have to get used to, and he seems to recoil at the notion of it.
Yeah, it's one of the hardest things for him. It's wrenching for him.
The crowd's greeting the limousine as it passes by.
These are all of the limousines. These are the limousines carrying the First Lady and the incoming First Lady, Jill Biden and Lynn Cheney, the wives of the incoming and outgoing Vice President, the limousine carrying Dick Cheney and Joe Biden, and finally the limousine carrying Barack Obama and George W. Bush. They're all going to be making their way, and they're going on Pennsylvania Avenue. That's in front of the reviewing stand there, where the parade after the swearing-in ceremony, after the inaugural address, eventually will wind its way to the front of the White House over there, the north side of the White House, where there will be a reviewing stand by the then President Barack Obama.
If you have not ever witnessed a presidential motorcade, it is something to see as it passes by, and there are already people all along this parade route who will be thrilled to watch this pass by. It is a multi-vehicle convoy, and because this limousine has such big windows, you actually can get a glimpse inside through the armored glass, and you get a quick sort of silhouette of the president. And for folks who've been standing outside, that can often be enough.
And that might be it, actually, for those who are standing by. We've seen the crowds and waded through them. Having a glimpse might be all you get.
All of us are going to be wondering, after the swearing-in ceremony, the inaugural address, the lunch that they have up on Capitol Hill, and they begin the parade, at what point, David, will the President of the United States and the First Lady actually walk out of that limousine and begin to walk out and wave to all the people on both sides of the street? We don't know the answer. It's a closely guarded secret right now for security reasons.
It is, and we remember Jimmy Carter was the one that shocked everyone because he and Rosalind got out at the very beginning of the parade and walked the whole distance. In today's environment, with the security being what it is, the president would never be allowed to do that again. So the thought is that he's probably going to get out around the Treasury Department 200-300 yards from his final destination, maybe walk those last yards. But I would think that the Secret Service has planned this down to the T, because there has to be one place that they guard.
Now this motorcade will make its way. This is East Executive Drive on the east side of the White House. Eventually it'll make a right turn, a left turn, go up at East Street and make its way to Pennsylvania Avenue, and it'll go straight down Pennsylvania Avenue, past where we are. We're at 6th and Pennsylvania here at the museum, and eventually make its way up to the U.S. Capitol. They're driving at a relatively slow speed here on East Executive Boulevard. I assume they'll be driving a little bit faster on Pennsylvania Avenue, which is this very wide boulevard that will enable them to make that quick trek up there.
Usually in Washington, Anderson was talking about motorcades. We're used to motorcades in Washington, but they usually go by a little faster than this one.
It's a Cadillac, by the way. It's a U.S. made vehicle.
Think about all the past presidents who have made this very same journey to the Capitol. Abraham Lincoln heading over there. Washington, D.C., a very different place, obviously, in those days.
Very different place. And Washington, D.C. is a different place from the place it is today, Anderson.
All right.
The partisanship is not here today.
We're not going to leave this shot of the motorcade heading up Pennsylvania Avenue towards the U.S. Capitol. In fact, it will be in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. We're going to take a quick break. This will be the last break we take before the swearing-in ceremony and the inauguration of Barack Obama. Our coverage will continue right after this.
It's filled with surprises, yet with a touch.
Up Pennsylvania Avenue. There's a shot from the motorcade. Anderson, we have a camera right in that motorcade as well, recording this historic event. The president outgoing and incoming, they're sitting together in one vehicle, and pretty soon they'll be up on Capitol Hill. They'll get ready because in exactly 1 hour, maybe a little bit less than 1 hour, Barack Obama becomes President of the United States.
We should remind all our viewers we will not be taking any more commercial breaks all the way through the swearing in of Barack Obama, so you'll want to stay with us throughout this entire journey.
And in fact, we won't take any commercial breaks until after he speaks. The inaugural address following immediately after he's sworn in. That'll be about a 20-minute address as well. You know what? As we keep these pictures up, Ed Henry is up there in the VIP section on Capitol Hill, our senior White House correspondent. Ed, set the scene a little bit for us.
Well, it's interesting, Wolf. I can see from this vantage point here, right where Barack Obama is going to be delivering that inaugural address, just a few dozen feet away. Also, Senator Edward Kennedy. We know he's been ill with brain cancer. He's walking with a cane, but he's there. He's looking healthy. I also can see just a few feet away from Senator Kennedy, Senator John McCain, who obviously wanted to be there to be sworn in today. That was not to be. There's also obviously a lot of celebrities here. John Cusack, the actor, is here. First of all, Anderson Cooper has been wondering, how does someone like you get tickets to an event like this?
I don't know. I sort of feel like Zelig. I don't know quite how it happens, but I've...
It just magically appears.
Yeah.
There's a sea of people right out there that you and I have been marveling at all morning.
All morning.
From here to the Washington Monument and the Lincoln Memorial. What do you think when you look out there and see that crowd?
Well, I think it's just humbling and awestruck, you know, all the hyperbole you could think of. And you just think, you know, they always said it was possible, and they kept telling us it was possible. And You look out and you think it's possible.
Steven Spielberg is here as well. Steven, thank you very much for joining us. What is going through your mind? You see this crowd of people here. We're just moments away from watching Barack Obama be sworn in. What's going through your mind?
Well, I can't wait to hear what Barack Obama has to say to all of us. He's just an amazing, force of energy. I'm also looking out here and saying I couldn't afford to do this shot in a movie.
Very interesting. Thank you, Steven Spielberg. Back to you, Wolf and Anderson. Thanks, Wolf and Anderson.
Steven Spielberg, he can afford to do any shot he wants.
So that you were pointing out that
Cusack, he's being a little bit modest. He actually was a very big supporter of Barack Obama. If you remember back when he was running for Senate, it was John Cusack, who was a local guy, would give a lot of support there, and it actually helped push him over into popularity in the Senate race. So when he says, I don't know how I got my ticket, he's being a little bit modest. That's not the case. He's been a longtime supporter, well before I think even he thought about campaigning for the race, and of course,
Joe Biden just entering the building, waiting to see one glimpse of Barack Obama and President Bush.
And I want to also let our viewers know that they were expecting really horrible weather here on this day. But if you take a shot of Anderson Cooper and Wolf Blitzer right now, you'll see we took off our overcoats. But there's the First Lady and the incoming First Lady. They're already there. They've gotten out of their limos and they're walking in. There are going to be heaters up there on Capitol Hill for them. But there's no doubt that the weather is definitely better. Barack Obama has now arrived on Capitol Hill, and he's outside. He's getting ready to walk inside as well. They're going to be almost, I'm guessing, about 55 minutes before the actual swearing-in ceremony takes place.
You see the picture a minute ago of Michelle Obama. She's wearing an Isabel Toledo. They have announced she's a Cuban-American designer.
Joe Biden and Lynn Cheney, the wives of the vice president-to-be and the current vice president, walking in. They're followed by the honor guards. And there's George Bush and Joe Biden. George Bush and Barack Obama as they're walking in into the historic chambers.
There's a roar going through the crowd. We are a few blocks away, and you can hear it from here. I assume that on the Jumbotron, they are seeing some of these pictures. They know that Barack Obama is very close to coming out on that platform.
Once he does, that crowd will go crazy. Not only the people who are up front and can actually see him, but those further behind, they'll see him on those huge screens that have been assembled on both sides of the National Mall, and they will be watching every step of the way. Those are giant jumbotrons, and people will get even more excited than they already are. And then I suspect, and I'm sure, what will happen is once the swearing-in ceremony takes place, it will be very quiet. You know what? Let's listen to the U.S. Marine Corps band a little bit as we watch these pictures.
Raleigh's our state capital. Have you heard of them?
Ladies and gentlemen, the Chief Justice of the United States, the Honorable John G. Roberts, Jr., and the Associate Justices of the Supreme Court of the United States.
Will be in charge of swearing in Barack Obama. There he is, John Roberts, walking in with 7 other justices. One of the justices decided not to attend, as we heard earlier from Jeff Toobin.
It's one of the few events in our government in which all three branches of government are involved in one single event. You have for the judicial branch, legislative branch, as well as obviously the executive branch. The only other event, to my knowledge, is an impeachment of a president.
A joint session of when the president comes up to give a State of the Union, he then has the House, the Senate.
But the Supreme Court doesn't have an active role.
But it comes. No, it does not have an active role.
This is the only event in which they all three have a role to play.
That's right.
And this journey from one end of Pennsylvania Avenue to the other is something that the president will do a lot in the upcoming 4 years.
Yeah, I keep thinking as I'm watching this today, there's so much joy attached to this because recently when we've had processions in Washington with these black limousines, they've been funerals. Ronald Reagan and Gerald Ford, we lost both of them during these last few years, and this one has such a different feel about it because it is joyful, it is celebratory. such fresh beginnings.
As most know by Mr. William F. Daley, Miss Penny Pritzker, Mr. John W. Rogers Jr., Mr. Patrick G. Ryan, and Ms. Juliana Smoot, co-chairs of the 56th Presidential Inaugural Committee. And Mr.
Talk a little bit about what is going to happen in the next hour in run-up to the swearing-in.
Well, what happens now is the Obamas actually proceed to the Senate dining room. That they will have a chance to just relax a little bit and get ready as some of the other VIPs, the dignitaries, are introduced to the crowd. The former presidents will be there. Former President Mrs. Jimmy Carter, former President Mrs. George H.W. Bush, and former President Bill Clinton, Senator Hillary Clinton, soon to be Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. It's interesting, as we look at Hillary Clinton, Anderson and Gloria, she was supposed to be confirmed as the Secretary of State together with some others by the full Senate later today, but one U.S. Senator, Senator John Cornyn of Texas, decided to put a hold on that at least for one day, so she's not going to be Secretary of State at least for another day.
Right. He also told Dana Bash, though, just this morning that he knows that she's going to get confirmed, but his complaint is about Bill Clinton's charitable foundation and the conflicts of interest that might cause. So ceremonially, I guess, he's holding it up for a day, but she will be confirmed.
There's going to be an interesting moment at around 11:20, a little bit more than 10 minutes from now, when President Bush enters the stage. The band will play Hail to the Chief. It will be the last time the Marine Corps band plays Hail to the Chief for this president, and then moments after Barack Obama is sworn in, they will play Hail to the Chief, this time for Barack Obama, and that will be the first time President Obama hears that played for him.
I just want to also point out that what's happening right now is being seen not only by millions, tens of millions of people in the United States, but we're on around the world. People are watching in 240 countries and territories right now. There are already estimates that more people will watch this event than have ever watched anything in the history of television. This could be the largest audience ever, the largest audience for a show in the United States. Years ago, the final episode of MASH had more than 100 million people watching. I suspect this one will have a lot more than that in the United States. When you add up all the various television networks that are carrying this live, CNN is carrying it live around the world. So we're talking about hundreds of millions of people.
A lot of folks
who will be
right now watching this online, both CNN.com as well.
Yeah, people who have to work, they, I'm sure, taking a look in their computers.
In many ways, it's the world's inauguration. It's not only an American inauguration, and it is sending a message to the world of new hope about what America represents. At a time there have been disappointment around the world and what we've been up to, this has rekindling that flame. So this is it's memorable in so many different ways.
Barack Obama has said that only in America is his story possible, his personal story, his personal journey, his family's journey of his mother and father coming together and his upbringing.
And it's what's connected him to so many people who also think, well, only in America is their story possible, too. Whether you're a Native American who come here from Europe as an immigrant, you have come here because you're a descendant of slaves, you've come here
You see the former vice presidents coming in. You saw Dan Quayle, Al Gore, and there's Walter Mondale and Mrs. Mondale. They were invited. They're attending just as the former presidents. You're going to be seeing and hearing from them. You're not going to be hearing from them. You can be seeing them very soon as they get ready
It is
to walk
remarkable to think on this stage, on the west front of the Capitol, just about every person who we have watched over the last 20 years or so in government is there. I mean, this is the power of our country.
If you can get a ticket to this and you're invited to this, you go to this because it is such an obvious moment in history. And you talk about how our country is able to self-correct and change. I mean, just think of Barack Obama putting his hand on that Bible, pledging to defend the Constitution of the United States that originally counted a black man as 3/5 of a person. And now he's president.
Future Attorney General of the United States, Eric Holder.
It is, as you say, Anderson, because there are so many defeated rivals on that stage, people who wanted to be president. It is reaffirming about the fact that at the end of the day, in a democracy, especially in this democracy, we try to put down our differences and join as one. And that is I think that keeping that spirit alive is very much the purpose of Barack Obama's inaugural. I might just note
Donovan, future head of housing and urban development. I went to high school with him.
We should tell our viewers we have just received a copy of the inaugural address. That it's not always true that the members of the press get a copy. Sometimes it's still being written in that car on the way out. But we can't say anything about it, but we have just received copies.
It's a speech that Barack Obama has been working on now for several weeks. We were told it had largely been finished, what, about a week or so ago?
Yes, but he's somebody who actually writes his own things, and he's written 2 books, as you all know, and he's somebody who works very closely with his speechwriter, but continues to tweak it until the very end because he believes in the power of words, as we know.
See now, you saw Eric Holder at the bottom. These are members of the incoming cabinet of Barack Obama's administration who are coming in. They'll be escorted into their seats as well. I also want to let our viewers know we're going to be doing something rather extraordinary in the next few minutes. We've ordered an exterior shot of the mall from way up in space, a satellite image. We'll take a picture of what's happening here in Washington, D.C., GOI-6 satellite to be precise. We're going to get the view from space. We're going to turn that picture around as quickly as we can, and you're going to see what this would look like if you were flying overhead from space, from a satellite. It's going to be, Anderson, a pretty amazing shot. I don't think...
How do you order up a satellite?
David Borman, our Washington bureau chief,
if anyone knows how to call up a satellite,
does that. He just makes a phone call. He says, get me the picture from that satellite, and we're going to show it to our viewers in the United States and around the world. We try, as all of our viewers by now know, to do some unusual, extraordinary technological...
Hopefully there won't be clouds.
It's turned out to be such a nice day. Look at that sun. Look at how gorgeous it is. It's maybe a little chilly, but it's a lot nicer than many of us thought it would be, and we're pretty happy about all of that. I'm sure no one is as happy as all the millions who have gathered here in Washington, D.C. There's Walter Mondale again walking in with Dan Quayle and his wife, and Al Gore and Tipper Gore, the former vice presidents of the United States, participating in this historic event.
It's interesting. I mean, we look at these pictures of these powerful people on the West Front who have access, who have tickets. I think the real story, though, of today is turning the cameras around and seeing the more than 1 million people out who have come here from all around the world. We've been talking to people over the last couple of days. I mean, literally from every country
absolutely.
You can imagine.
Talking about it as a pilgrimage, having to be here for a moment, and not just the moment of putting his hand and taking the oath of office, but as you said, imagine there was a time when a black man was worth 3/5 of a white man. So the idea that that same black man who would have that percentage, if you will, could be president of the United States. It's not about Barack Obama. It's about a country's history really moving forward for a lot of people.
And so many. I mean, we talk about that hundreds of years ago. What a lot of young people, especially watching today, don't even realize is that in our lifetime, I mean, in our lifetime in states in the Union, Barack Obama's parents could not have gotten married. In
Interracial
Virginia,
marriage,
in Maryland. I mean, there are places...
the Supreme Court didn't overturn that ban until 1967. That was not so long ago.
Which all speaks to the possibility of America. I mean, that's what this is about. That's why everyone is on the mall today. That's what they're applauding. Not only Barack Obama, but he does represent the possibilities.
Let's listen to the color guard for a moment.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated.
The Obamas are about to be announced, we believe. First, Mr. and Mrs. Bush.
They will be greeted by members of the Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies up on Capitol Hill. They have a committee for everything. There you see the former President George H.W. Bush and Barbara Bush, the parents of the current President of the United States. They're walking in. They'll be followed by other former presidents. Jimmy Carter and Bill Clinton will be coming in as well. This must be one of those moments for the first President Bush. Bittersweet. On the one hand, he sees his son winding up 8 years as President of the United States. At the same time, he sees his son leaving office, at least if you believe all the public opinion polls, not very popular right now. Seems to be struggling, David, a little bit as he's walking down President Bush.
He is. He clearly age has taken a toll on him now. But I must say, this is a man who is, they may be bittersweet, but he's also profoundly grateful.
And there's Jimmy Carter and Rosalind Carter, the former president, former first lady. They're moving along rather briskly as they get ready to take their seats up at the VIP section on Capitol Hill, the west front of the U.S. Capitol. And Anderson, we should be seeing Bill Clinton walking in very soon. I assume Hillary Clinton will be walking with Bill Clinton, even though she also has another hat as not only a United States Senator, but also as an incoming member of the Obama cabinet.
That is what we have been told to expect. And after the former presidents are seated, then the vice presidents will come, and former President, current President Bush will emerge, and then, of course, the Obamas.
It's worth remembering about the Bushes. 3 generations of Bushes in a row have sat on that platform for presidential inaugurations. That's a remarkable story.
And that was one of the reasons Barack Obama gave for his election. He said it's enough of the Bushes and the Clintons.
Power passes, as it should.
And that's another thing, which is the passing of a torch in so many ways. What we haven't talked about is the generation, the post-baby boomer generation, really feeling that Barack Obama is their president.
Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton, they're walking out right now. She's going to become the Secretary of State of the United States. She would have liked, Anderson, as you know, and all of our viewers know, to become the President of the United States. That's not happening, at least not now, but she is going to be the Secretary of State. There may be a few Republicans who vote not to confirm her, but she should sail through. She sailed through 15-1 her confirmation process before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Only Louisiana Republican Senator David Vitter voting against her. She might get a few more votes against her in the full Senate, but not very many. She's going to be confirmed, and she will then become the next Secretary of State.
It's interesting, as soon as their picture emerged, I'm assuming it was shown on the Jumbotrons, because they could hear again a roar from the crowd who is assembled here on the Mall.
Yeah, Bill Clinton was up there a few times taking the swearing-in ceremony himself in '93, January '93, and January '97. So he's got a unique vantage point of what is about to happen. And there you see the former president, George H.W. Bush. Yeah, he really is not walking all that well right now. He's walking slowly, and looks like he's in a little bit of pain. I don't know what the problem is, but we saw him recently doing some TV interviews, including one together with his son. He seemed to be pretty lively, pretty chipper and all that. Rahm Emanuel, the incoming White House Chief of Staff, now a former member of the U.S. House of Representatives from Chicago. He's there, and if you know Rahm Emanuel, as many of us do, he's about as pumped and as enthused as you could possibly be. He's a very, very lively guy, and he's a very, very ardent political animal, has been like that ever since he was a student in college. He's just been so enthralled by this whole political process, and he must be so excited that he's reached this moment, not only in his personal life, but also to see Barack Obama become president.
This is his return to the White House, because, of course, you know, he worked for Bill Clinton as a top aide, and then went in, became a member of Congress, and now going back in for a second tour in the White House. You know what that's like, David.
Yeah, Bill Clinton once told me he never would have become president without Rahm Emanuel, because he did such a marvelous job raising money for him. And now here he is with his second president right at his side.
It seems so quaint if you look back to the '92 campaign. At that time, I think Bill Clinton raised about $50 or $60 million to become president of the United States. Nowadays, that would seem like, you know, a week's worth of online donations or whatever.
This very inauguration cost more than that. Very expensive.
How was that?
Let's listen in.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 39th President of the United States, Jimmy Carter and Mrs. Rosalind Carter.